at the end of the day, like I've always been, since a young age, I've always strived for greatness in everything that I did, whether it was like school or athletics or acting or singing or, you know, being in the corporate world. And so, you know, once I just really, truly believed in myself, I felt unstoppable because I knew, okay, like if I can excel in all of these other things that I've ever done, what would make this different about something that I'm deeply passionate about? If anything, I'll be even more successful.
An entrepreneur straight out of New York City, Michael Chernow was cracking.
What up, everybody? I am not sitting here with Meghan Swidler. I'm sitting here with Meghan Swidler. I'm very excited about the guest that I have on the Kreatures Habit podcast today. She is a holistic nutritional coach, wellness coach. She focuses on gut health, skin, hair, and potentially nails, hormones, a bunch of things in the world of holistic wellness. I'm very excited to talk about gut health. I am very excited to talk about gut health. It is a topic of conversation, as I'm sure most of you have been paying attention. Over the last 3 or 4 years, gut health is like really sort of like the arguably most important thing to be paying attention to. And there's a lot of things that we'll probably get into today to go over how to optimize your gut. But Meghan is originally from Canada. She went to Cornell, where a lot of my friends also went to. She stepped into the world of corporate business. Probably now that she's a holistic wellness coach, you can obviously imagine that she took a turn somewhere along the way, not long ago. But she very quickly became very good at what she does. She wrote a book called From Within that launched about a year and change ago. And she's working on another book now that maybe she'll give us a little bit of a sneak peek on. I'm very excited to have Meghan Swidler on the show. You can find her online or on Instagram, probably on most social channels as The Plant-Based Gal. Meghan, welcome to the Kreatures Habit podcast.
Thank you so much for having me. It's such an honor to be here and to chat with you today. It's going to be so fun.
Well, we talk a lot about habits here.
Yeah.
We talk a lot about habits, but I've also been really interested in bringing on some very specific experts in the world of better living, right? I feel like most people that listen to this podcast are just looking to be better. A little bit better, right? It's like there's definitely entrepreneurs, there's athletes, there's wellness people, nutrition people, fitness people, and more. But I really do think that everybody that tunes into the podcast is literally just looking for a couple of cool tips, tricks, hacks, ways to implement better into their lives. So why don't you just give us a quick bio? You could probably do a little bit better than I did, and then we'll kick off with some habit stuff.
Yeah, of course. So yeah, as you mentioned, I grew up in Montreal from a very young age. I feel like I wanted to leave. I wanted to do big things since I was a kid. So I went away to school to Cornell, graduated in 2013. At that time, when I was I was 21, I saw a naturopath who changed my life. So I had, cystic-ish acne. I had hormone issues. I had gut issues. I was in a sorority in school. I was drinking a lot. I was not eating well. I grew up in a very healthy household, but I wasn't the healthiest at that time. And he changed my life in a matter of a few weeks. And at that point, I became obsessed with holistic health. So
wait, I just have to stop you there. So what did he do? How did he change your life?
So he transformed kind of my food routine and focused on cleansing, which is basically my entire philosophy and approach around wellness and healing my clients from within, was what he sort of left with me at that time. And he's actually still my mentor today, which is incredible. And I feel like I'm kind of like his protege in a way. But that was the beginning of my journey with health, and I became obsessed with health. Every free moment I had was spent studying and practicing holistic health and healing. But I was an type A overachiever. Like I had set a plan for myself. I'm going to work for a hypergrowth tech startup in Silicon Valley. I'm going to get my MBA at Stanford or Harvard. I'm going to work in venture capital. I worked for a tech startup for 5 years in San Francisco and New York. And then I was applying to get my MBA, but said, like, let's see if I can get this venture capital job, like without going to business school. And I did. Got this dream job that on paper I wanted, and started that job in January 2021. And I was living the dream, but in theory, but I was so incredibly, I felt empty. I felt this emptiness. I started this job. I had never felt so misaligned in my entire life. And
can you unpack that because you hear that story,
yeah.
right? I'm working for this
yeah.
corporate sort of hard charging thing.
Yeah.
But a lot of people say I'm not fulfilled.
Yeah, totally.
So what is that? Before we go further, I just want to understand what that means. What did that mean for you?
I had just left New York. I was supposed to move to LA to take this venture capital job. And I was home in Canada with my family over the holidays. So that was like winter, 2020 into 2021. And I feel like because I was able to step out of the matrix, I was really able to like tune into my body. And I was starting the job remotely. I was in Canada and I had a lot of time alone. And I just felt this like contraction in my body. Like I didn't feel this joy and excitement that I wanted to have waking up. I was like starting my day on Zoom calls. When you start a new job, you want to be excited, right? I was starting dreading it all, like just dreading it.
Do you think it had to do with the fact that you were remote and in the pandemic, or was it way more than that?
Yeah, at the time I thought it might just have something to do with that, but then a couple days passed and that feeling was still there. And backtrack, I had this deep inner knowing that I wanted to pursue nutrition. Over the past 5 years, I would always tell myself, oh, I should do this nutrition course, or oh, I should do, and I always sort of like pushed it to the side. And then the voice just kept getting louder and louder and louder and louder to the point where I just had to listen. And at that time, January 2021, I felt super misaligned. I ended up having this really transformational coaching session with he calls himself a fear coach, and he really taught me that fear was paralyzing me. I was someone who felt like I always had to have control and know everything. And the fear of the unknown, of what that other career would look like, the unknown of that just completely paralyzed me from taking action. And he sort of taught me to use fear as a compass and said, no, because you're fearful of it, this is the direction that you should go. Towards it. And I also realized through that session that I was living for everyone else's expectations of me, and I wasn't living for myself. So unknowingly, I think I had a lot of pressure from different people in my life. I was always the person who got straight A students, was on every sports team, was the lead of every school play. And from a very young age, I felt this pressure to live up to people's expectations of me. And so when I really unraveled from all of that and realized that these people in my life actually just wanted me to be happy, they felt bad. They didn't know that they were putting all this pressure on me. Then the answer was so clear, because deep down, all I wanted was to make an impact in the world and help people live happier, healthier, more meaningful lives. Just like my life had been transformed, I wanted to transform other people's lives. And
what was the name of the fear coach?
His name is Ben Harris.
Okay, we'll link to that in the show notes.
Yeah, he's cool. It was just one session. It was very serendipitous. Like a spot opened up on like January 3rd or something, and it was just like it was meant for me. Mm-hmm. And I think deep down, he really helped me come to that conclusion and take the step. But I think deep down, I really, knew that I had to take that leap. So woke up and quit, and fast forward.
I had the exact same, not the exact same, but I had a very similar experience in the beginning of the pandemic, exactly at the same time you did.
Wow.
And I was, I'd traditionally been in the restaurant business for my whole life. Started at 12, opened my first business at 28, opened 14 restaurants over the next 13 years. Never thought that I'd be in another business ever. I was like, this is it. Like, I'm a New York City restaurateur. I wore that shit on my sleeve. And the pandemic hit. Mm-hmm. And I was like, that's it. My career is over, at least for the next foreseeable future. Mm-hmm. And I got I hired a coach who, her name is Megan Dolce. She owns a company called Ripe. We should hit that in the show notes as well. She's amazing. She worked with me and convinced me that the restaurant was a medium, and that creatively I can build on any campus. And
Totally.
I think similarly, it's kind of something that it seems like you had a similar experience.
Totally. I think at the end of the day, like I've always been, since a young age, I've always strived for greatness in everything that I did, whether it was like school or athletics or acting or singing or, being in the corporate world. And so, once I just really, truly believed in myself, I felt unstoppable because I knew, okay, like if I can excel in all of these other things that I've ever done, what would make this different about something that I'm deeply passionate about? If anything, I'll be even more successful. If I'm completely aligned and I actually love what I do, then I'm going to be totally unstoppable. And so when I really dug deep and really believed in myself, even though I had a lot of doubt, fear, worry, and stuff that came up, because I thought to myself, oh, use fear as a compass, run in the direction of fear, it didn't stop me and paralyze me as it did in the past. So I was able to be like, okay, keep going. Like there's discomfort, and there's still discomfort to this day. As you grow and evolve, there's always going to be new discomfort that comes up as you take it to the next level. So you just have to accept that as part of being an entrepreneur and starting your own thing.
I couldn't agree more. I mean, one of the lines that I've used over and over again, because I believe it with every cell in my body, is that on the other side of fear is freedom. So run through it as fast as humanly possible, because there's only one way to get to the other side.
Totally.
And running around it tends to take you off path.
Yeah, I've been studying Kabbalah with David Guillaume, and that's through actually Adam. And it's kind of a similar saying as pain is a shell that encapsulates a spark of light. So if you run away from the pain, you'll never get to the light. But if you embrace the pain and move through the pain, you'll get to the light. It's within the pain. And so I love that, because I think people tend to numb out or avoid pain. And it's really just like, we all go through difficult experiences. We all go through challenge, and it's all about like really embracing that and moving through it, because the light is within.
I don't think anybody that has established even a glimmer of greatness has not experienced an ungodly amount of pain.
Totally.
I believe that learning to love the hard and the hurt is the only way to get towards that unstoppable place. It's like once you can truly, actually, consciously say, I am appreciative. I am in for it. I want it.
That's the trick.
When it comes, it's like you have two options, right? You can completely immerse yourself and say, okay, what is this? How can I be better? What can I learn from this? How can I use this to my advantage? Or you can completely run the other way. And just imagine, for whatever reason, that it's going to dissipate. And it never does. Life is hard.
There's a saying in Kabbalah, like, pause, what a pleasure, which I love. And again, it goes back to what you said about saying, like, when you get something that's difficult in your life, pausing and saying, what a pleasure. Just saying, like, wow, like this means that there's greatness on the other side. So I'm going to be excited about this.
How cool is that? How cool is that?
It's really cool to be in that place where you have full trust and certainty that everything is going to happen in divine timing, and to really just know that as difficult experiences come up, you can move through them with grace and ease. Like, that's living in that place is so beautiful, because like you'll get through it all.
One area I think in life that, because I feel I identify so much with that thought process. One area that people have asked me, well, how do you deal with death of a loved one? And of course, it's terrible. It's so painful, right? When somebody that you love, you've lost, right? It's so hard. And I've experienced it. I've experienced it with my father. I've experienced it with my grandfather. I've experienced it with many friends. Unfortunately, because I come from this world of addiction, and a lot of the friends that I had those days are gone. And the way I draw the silver lining in it is I literally consider them angels.
For sure.
And I put them in my prayers every day.
For sure.
And, I literally pray for all the people that I've lost in my life every day. And that's the silver lining in it for me. So I think no matter what situation comes to surface, it's not that it's going to be easy or not based on whether you run from it or run to it. But at the end of the day, the option of running to it, the habit of convincing yourself, or the habit of using pain as a cue for greatness. Imagine that, right? Like using pain as a cue for greatness. It's amazing. I think it's a great segue into, I want to talk about morning routine for a minute. Do you have a morning routine?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
I'm a routine girl. I like to call them my morning rituals. I feel like routine makes it feel like I have to do this. Rituals is like I get to do this, So my rituals, I wake up at, 4:30 to 5 usually, and I usually make my lemon water, take supplements. I do a bit of gratitude journaling, just like simple kind of, what are 3 things that I'm grateful for? What are the 3 things I want to accomplish today? And like an affirmation of sorts. And then depending on my mood, I either do breath work if I'm feeling anxious. I'm usually not anxious, but I'll do either breath work or meditation, usually using the Open app.
What is the Open app?
Open is an incredible mindfulness platform. There's actually a breathwork movement meditation studio in Venice. They're going to be opening more studios, very close with the founders and a lot of people that work there. And they have an incredible app. I have a code which we can link for 30 days free. So they have an amazing app with beautifully designed, aesthetic, like amazing instructors, and they have like flow, they have meditation, breath work, all segmented depending on whether you want energy or sleep or whatever else. And I love it so much. Most of my friends use it too. So I'll do breath work or meditation in there. I'll usually make my matcha and respond to emails. I'm an inbox zero type of person. Everything's like done by the time I go to the gym. And so
are you at inbox zero pretty much every morning?
I'm at all times. Usually. I'm very on top of that. Everything's like organized and color coded and all that jazz in my inbox. So,
doesn't it when you look at like some people's inbox when it's like 46,772, doesn't that actually drive, like I'm not inbox zero. I try to keep it as low as I possibly can. It's so goddamn hard. I did get inbox zero though on my flight to Austin, and I kept it at under 6 for like 4 or 5 days. This morning I got crushed, but inbox zero feels unbelievable. When I get a glimpse of somebody that's like in like the 5-6 figures, I'm like, how are you? What planet do you live on?
My mom is in real estate, and she has just like a million different emails, a ton, like just
but
it's
I know
overwhelmed.
Really successful people
I know it's crazy. I don't know how people, but it works for them, but it wouldn't work for me. And then, I go to hot yoga or I go on a sunrise hike. I'm in nature a lot. So I usually hike at least 3 to 4 times a week at like 6:30 in the morning, or I go to hot yoga depending on my mood. And then in the summer, I live in LA. So if I go hike, I usually go take a dip in the ocean and then come home, shower and start my day. But now that it's cooler, I know it's not as cold as New York, but it's cold for LA. I usually just will come home, shower, start my day at like 8:30. And if I do yoga, I'll usually go on like a little walk at some point in the morning.
Awesome.
Yeah.
The lemon water piece, is there like a specific recipe that you have, or is it just lemon and water with some salt? Warm
lemon water. I think people have a tendency to wake up and like go straight for the cup of coffee, and it's very acidic to start. You want to start your day in an alkaline place, and coffee is very acidic. And so lemon is really alkalizes the digestive tract and really like gets things moving. So it's a really good thing to, start your day with as an alternative to coffee. And then if you're going to have coffee, like have it a little bit later in the morning, or you could just have like a filtered, glass of filtered water. But I don't recommend going straight for the coffee, even though that's what a lot of people do.
Something that I think is interesting to talk about real quick is water temperature in the morning. So when I drink just an ungodly amount of water in general. Just throughout the day. I just drink a lot of water. I just learned that hydration plays such a role in my happiness in my life. Although it's funny, when I was in Austin this year, there was a big Airbnb we got, and I was actually sharing a room with someone, and he was drinking water all night long. Like he would wake up and like guzzle water, and I was like, that is insane. So I don't recommend doing that because he definitely went to the bathroom like 3 times. But temperature of water, I now have room temperature water, but for years I would have cold water in the morning from my filter in the fridge, and it would like immediately make my body cold, and I can't imagine that being like a good thing.
No, yeah, I think the recommendation is room temperature, and then like the lemon water that I make, it's like slightly warm. It's not like boiling hot, but it's just like slightly warmer.
So just warm water and lemon.
Yeah, with lemon like squeeze into it. Yeah,
okay.
Yeah.
I want to get into gut health because I feel I have had like a gut health journey battle, and I think a lot of it has to do with my chronic Lyme. So I have chronic Lyme disease, and when I am going through like a flare up, and I'm sorry, I'm definitely going to take use of this podcast opportunity to get some answers, get some questions answered for me. But I think it'll probably correlate a lot to the people out there. So when I have a flare up, the first thing is my gut. It is like the first thing, and then all sorts of other things kind of follow suit. But in general, if like explain what an unhealthy gut is, and a couple of tactics or tools that people can implement into trying to heal that.
Really, really good question. My first book, From Within, that you mentioned is a comprehensive handbook for gut health. So it goes through like exactly how to optimize your gut health to a T. But to summarize that, an unhealthy gut dysbiosis, there's basically 2 different types of bacteria in the gut. There's good bacteria and there's bad bacteria. Good bacteria is obviously great for you. And then pathogenic bacteria, what can happen is that can creep in and then take more space. And then because of that, we get to gut dysbiosis, which means that the bad outweighs the good, which it's a whole cascading, series of issues in the body because the gut is the second brain. So unhealthy gut, that's kind of what it means, is the bad bacteria is outweighing the good. A healthy gut symbiosis, means that the bad and the good are in balance. And you really want to have, good gut bacteria to allow for a healthy, strong, resilient gut microbiome. And what that looks like is a large variety of different gut bacteria, different species, a large quantity of those good gut bacteria, and that allows for basically resilience within the gut. And so to allow for that to happen, how do we, increase the good bacteria in the gut, and how do we decrease the bad bacteria in the gut? There's a lot of different things that play into this, but a few tips for increasing the good bacteria: eating a ton of soluble and insoluble fiber, so through plant-based whole foods, fruits, vegetables, legumes, whole grains, nuts, and seeds are just full of fiber, and fiber is really the food for that good gut bacteria. So it helps them become stronger and more energized. So you really, really want to prioritize fiber. Most Americans are deficient in fiber. So we talk a lot about protein, but we don't talk a lot about fiber. A lot of people are constipated and have gut issues because they're not eating enough fiber. And so again, optimizing for filling your plate with plant foods is really critical.
Can you give like a top 5 hitters for fiber for people that just like, hey, if you eat these 5 things more, you will increase your fiber?
Oh, there's so many. I would say like beet.
What do you love?
Like on the fruit side, pineapple, grapefruit, oranges, berries. And then on vegetables, carrots, beets, dandelion greens, fennel, cabbage. Those are all things that come to mind as like very, very high fiber.
Okay.
And again, fiber is feeding that good gut bacteria, but it also acts as basically an intestinal broom that comes in and sweeps up and pushes out built up matter in your system. So a lot of Americans are very constipated and have difficulty with regularity, and fiber, because it's moving things through your system, really allows for that regularity.
I've heard, so I'm like, obviously I have a company that really focuses on helping people get as much protein as possible in the beginning of their day with Meal One. But a thing that I don't talk enough about Meal One, which was very important to me, was the 1-to-3 ratio, right? So like
Yeah.
30 grams of protein, 10 grams of fiber.
Yeah.
So every meal one has 30 grams of protein, 10 grams of fiber. The
Yeah.
fiber is so crucial,
So crucial.
especially in the beginning of your day, to get
Yeah.
like a nice dose of fiber.
Totally. Yeah. And I love how your oats are glyphosate free, which is super, super critical. And again, when you're having whole grains, you really, when you live in America, want to make sure that they're glyphosate free. So I really love that. And then, a couple of other things. Fermented foods are incredible. There's a study that says 2 to 3 tablespoons a day is really amazing in isolation if you don't change anything else for improving the state of your gut microbiome. So sauerkraut, kimchi are good examples of that. And then a probiotic, prebiotic supplement. I'm partnered with Seed. I have a code for them as well. And so that's a really
We'll link to that in the show notes.
We'll link to that, and that's a really good. And there's a bunch of others. Why I love Seed is it's a symbiotic, meaning there's prebiotics and probiotics in one supplement called a symbiotic, and that's a really good supplement to try. And then, of course, we talked about how do we increase the good gut bacteria, but how do we decrease the bad? You want to kind of just, decrease, exposure to, decrease alcohol, decrease antibiotic intake, even things like Advil, Aleve, aspirin, all of those things are harmful to the gut microbiome. Antibiotics is a big one, hormonal contraception, like all these things that we input into the body are very toxic. And then just decrease exposure to toxins, generally speaking. So non-toxic, make sure you're using non-toxic, makeup, skincare, filtering your water, filtering your air, like anything that you could do to make your environment more non-toxic is going to help your gut microbiome as well.
Are there any foods specifically that feed the bad ones?
Yeah. So any processed and refined foods, refined seed oils, refined sugars, gluten, dairy, any of those foods are going to be, I would say the ultra processed foods are the biggest culprit. Right now, 60% of calories that Americans consume are ultra processed. So that's the biggest culprit in America, is those just packaged foods. So for anyone listening, really is like get more single ingredient whole foods onto your plate. And when I say that, it's single ingredient, meaning there's no label. An apple is an apple. It's an apple because there's no label. It's one ingredient. It's just an apple. Optimize for more of those types of foods and whole foods, and then minimize anything that's ultra processed.
It's so interesting, just like my experience and journey through the world of wellness and trying to heal my body from the inside out, because
Totally.
I really did I did some damage on my body for years.
Totally.
Like really just not being cognizant of anything all throughout my teen years when my body was really truly in development. And then into my early 20s, I had zero interest and or wherewithal to know like what to consume. So I consumed all the bad stuff, and so I really did. I did some serious damage, and I've been on a journey over the last 20 years to like fix the problem, right? And the one area where I feel like I could use the most help is my gut. My gut, like it's just, it kind of comes back to that. And I feel like whenever I feel sick, like if I'm getting sick, which knock on wood, I have not had in a long, like I really don't get sick. Outside of a Lyme flare-up, I don't get sick. But when I do get sick, I feel like it starts in my gut.
For sure. So actually that's true. 70 to 80% of your immune system lives in your gut. So anytime I interact with anyone that says they always get sick, it means that they have gut dysbiosis, 100%. Like, so if your gut is healthy and resilient, your gut is your second brain. It impacts every other organ and system in your body. It impacts your hormones, your thyroid, your immune system. And so when your gut is in symbiosis, usually all of these other organs and systems will fall into place. But when it is not, you're bound to have not only gut issues, but a ton of other issues as well, spanning like hormone imbalances, skin issues, thyroid imbalances, energy issues, immunity issues. Again, it can affect so much in your body. And so I really think that gut, like getting your gut in check, is kind of the highway to better health.
You had mentioned something about cleansing, and I know that you're a cleansing expert.
Yeah.
So like, can you give us a little bit of content on that?
Yeah. So yeah, again, my book From Within, you just mentioned yourself, is like you mentioned healing from within. And that's the whole premise of my philosophy and approach, is allowing the body to heal and regenerate from within. The body is built to be in balance. It's built to be perfect. It's just that we have so much toxicity that we're exposed to that our body just becomes overwhelmed, and then we get a ton of different health issues that we see as physical symptoms, right? Like skin issues, hormone imbalances, gut issues, whatever else. And so while the inputs are extremely important, the food that we eat, the supplements that we take, the outputs are way, way more important. And so that's where cleansing and detoxification comes in. Most people and even practitioners think that the inputs are what matter. It's like if someone has gut issues, or like, what foods do I eat or not eat? What supplements do I take or what supplements do I not take? But actually the answer is in cleansing. So when you cleanse the body, so again, focusing, I focus my practice on colon cleansing, colonics, enemas, a ton of things, and then liver cleansing as well, and other cleansing modalities like hyperthermic conditioning or cold immersion, a lot of the things that you talked about before. Once you clean the organs of that accumulated toxic waste matter, you are giving your body the conditions to heal from within. Your body, just like when you get a cut on your hand and you scab and it scabs over and it heals, your internal organs have the capacity to do that under the right conditions. We just need to give it those conditions. And so as a coach, I am helping my clients heal themselves from within by way of, it's a two-pronged effort. Changing foods and changing the inputs, but also complementing that with cleansing and allowing for those outputs to get the body back into balance, basically.
Let's dive into the cleansing piece.
Yeah.
I want to hear about it.
Yeah. So what do you want to know?
I mean, I think when people hear cleansing,
yeah,
right, traditionally, or at least the first thing I thought when I was thinking cleansing was, I didn't think of actually colonics. I thought of juice cleanse, or fasting, like long extended fasting.
Yeah, totally.
But I like the idea of the colonic thing.
Yeah.
I've never actually tried that, and I would love to see what that could do for now I'm like totally intrigued.
I got you. This is my.
Can you do it alone, or do you need to have you got to go to a place?
Yeah, no. So stepping back, juicing and intermittent fasting and water fasting are all mentioned in my second book. Those are all very powerful cleansing tools. And the reason why they're powerful is juicing, because it's stripped of fiber, the nutrients can go straight to your cells to do very important cleansing work, and your body doesn't need to expend digestive energy on breaking down the fibers. That's why juicing is so incredible. I actually have a beet juice in my bag that I was drinking on the way here. And then fasting, what's happening when you're fasting is that your body, your digestive system doesn't need to use energy to break down new food that's coming in, so it's able to focus its energy on eliminating the waste that's already in your system. So that's why those two tools are very, very powerful.
So do you believe, though, just real quick, there's obviously a difference between intermittent fasting and also and then sort of like longer fasting?
Yeah.
Do you think that intermittent fasting actually has a similar effect where it starts to work on things?
Yeah. Obviously, like longer fasts, that's not, you might do that like once a quarter, once every 6 months. Again, it really depends on the person and how toxic and acidic their system is, but I might introduce that with a client. But intermittent fasting on a daily basis, it depends. Different people like doing different things, like a 16-8 window, but it is really powerful because, again, our bodies are not meant to be consuming food all the time. Thousands of years ago, hunters and gatherers had breaks because they had to go forage their food and prepare the food and all this stuff. They didn't have access to Uber Eats and DoorDash and all these things, and they didn't have food on demand at all times. So it's natural to have breaks in eating. So whether it's just having 3 meals a day and having 4 to 6 hour breaks between meals or doing intermittent fasting, it's really important to give your body the ability to eliminate waste that's already in the system instead of on having to digest new food. But again, so like people always ask me like, why is cleansing important? Like colonics, enemas, all these things, and I'll get into these modalities. Well, we're not like, obviously our organs, like our liver and our colon, can eliminate waste naturally, but we're not living the life that nature intended for us. We're living in very toxic environments. We have so much exposure to different things that our bodies are not meant to process and break down. So food and drink waste, environmental toxins, pollution, hormonal contraception, antibiotics, the list goes on and on and on. And the body does not have the ability to break down these things. So what happens? They accumulate in the body. So over months, years, decades, it creates this sort of accumulated toxic waste matter that kind of overloads both the colon and the liver and other organs as well. But you always want to start with the colon first. You need to clear the colon first before you move on to any other organs and systems in the body. And so, yeah, two modalities that are helpful there are colonics and enemas. So a colonic, you're going in, you're getting, it's not a colonoscopy, you get water introduced into the colon, and that hydration essentially acts as a shower. So when you have deeply impacted waste in the colon, it's very dry and deeply impacted, and it's not going to be released. And so a colonic helps to basically hydrate that matter so that it can then be released from the body. An enema is a self-administered at-home version of a colonic. You don't have a trained colon hydrotherapist in the room that's assisting the process. You're kind of doing it yourself. And it's not going to be as thorough and comprehensive as a colonic, but it is a really good option. And it's like, $20 for an enema bag on Amazon. So for someone who doesn't have access to colonics, it's a really great option. My second book is going to go through like a full enema step-by-step guide and like exactly how to do it all. And then a colonic is obviously kind of the better version of that. So if you have access to colonics, I definitely recommend that. And there's different types, and I go through all of that in my book as well.
How much waste are we all carrying around at any one time?
A lot. Yeah.
Like pounds?
Yeah. Yeah. So people are always trying to lose weight, right? That's like the thing. It's like everyone wants to lose weight. I'm like, what is weight? Weight is waste. Weight, like people, especially in the gut, right? People are always like, oh, I like have weight around my midsection I want to get rid of. And no matter what I do to change my way of eating, the weight doesn't go away and I'm hitting these dead ends. It's like, that's because that weight is waste in the colon, and that waste needs to be released in order for you to lose weight. And so people, again, focus so much on the inputs, like I'm going to do a juice cleanse, I'm going to change my food routine, I'm going to eat more veggies, but I'm not losing weight. And it's because if you don't do the cleansing, you're never going to get that accumulated waste out.
So what I'm hearing is this is groundbreaking shit, right?
Yeah.
What I'm hearing is in order to actually lose weight, not all the way, but to potentially get the thing going, to get the system ready to rock and roll, to fire up the engine. A great step would be to get a colonic or a series of colonics to help clean.
Totally. Yeah, it's really a two-pronged effort. So the food that you eat is the soap. So the food, you can't just eat 3 cheeseburgers a day and get a colonic and expect to be okay. But the foods can either support or hinder your vitality, and it's really important to eat the right foods to support the cleansing process. Again, the food and that fiber acts as the intestinal broom that sweeps up and awakens all that built-up matter in your system. And then you complement that with the release, which is the shower, which is the colonics and enemas. So both are equally important. And again, it's a two-pronged effort in order to kind of get to that optimal state of health that you're looking for. And yes, the cleansing is such an important part of healing. I've seen it with hundreds of my clients. That's why I wrote my second book about it. And I have like beginner, intermediate, advanced, expert detox protocols for food with colonics and enemas all baked into it. So people like have a step-by-step guide for that. And it's crazy how quickly someone's body can transform through that two-pronged approach.
Wow. And so that new book is not available now?
No, it's going to hopefully January.
I can't wait to read the book.
Yeah.
That sounds like a book that pretty much everybody should read. I mean,
totally.
We do not talk about this. This is not a. I'm very excited. I think I'm gonna sign up for a colonic. And a buddy of mine actually.
I'll put you in touch. I got you.
In New York?
Yeah.
Okay, good. Great.
He's the
godfather of cleaning the colon.
Godfather of colonics. I'm actually seeing him tomorrow. I'm interviewing him for my second book, which no one knows, but this podcast will shed light into that. But yeah, I'm interviewing him, and it's going to be transcribed.
What's his name?
His name's Gil Jacobs. He's in his 70s. He's also a mentor. Saw him for the first time when I was like 21, 22. Maybe a little bit older, but I had been, I had started this healthy journey. And when the first time I saw him, like I had an awakening of like, this is the missing link. And yeah, you're right. Not enough people are talking about it. There's so much on TikTok and Instagram about like what foods do this, what supplements, X, Y, Z. And it's my life's work to make this a core part of healing because it's so revolutionary.
I can't wait.
Yeah.
I can't wait. Honestly, I can't wait. I'm very excited about it. And I'm going to,
Yeah.
I'll share about my experience because gosh, like that sounds so promising.
Yeah. And there's so many other modalities, like you just mentioned before, like the cold plunge, the infrared, hyperthermic conditioning, which is exposure to heat, or cold immersion, exposure to cold, red light therapy, ozone therapy. There's so many other cleansing modalities that are really critical because there's 4 channels of elimination. There's the bowels, the urine, the lungs, and the skin. And so the skin after the bowels is the second biggest channel of elimination. So by doing that like hot cold, you're allowing for detox through the skin, which is also really powerful as well.
Yeah, that's what I mean. When I thankfully was diagnosed with Lyme disease.
Yeah,
because no
so
one
sorry.
could figure it out for a long time.
Yeah,
it was terrible. But I was so grateful to get a diagnosis because I was like, I thought I was dying. The number one thing I was advised to do was to get in a sauna as often as possible, specifically an infrared. And so now I use infrared every day. I have an infrared sauna in my garage. I also use a dry heat sauna with friends on the weekends or on Tuesday nights. But yeah, sauna has been a really, really great way for me. And I keep my Lyme's flare-ups at bay, really. I do, and I think it has a lot to do with right after Thanksgiving, flare, because I ate a lot of gluten, I ate a lot of dairy, I ate a lot of sugar, and it just happens. Like I said to my wife, I was like, know that my hands are going to swell up. Like, look, my hands are like balloons. I've got these weird arthritic sort of like lesions on my fingers that just kind of come out of nowhere. And it's just,
Cleansing will change your life. Like starting, and again, I'll help you through the whole process, but starting with the colonics and getting into the habit of that and then moving over to liver cleansing too, like will really help you a lot. Do you do any ozone or methylene blue IV?
I've done a bunch of ozone with a Lyme doc that lives upstate or that has this practice upstate, and we did HbO2 and
Great.
The only downside to that stuff is that none of it's covered on insurance.
I know,
so every time I do
so
it, it's
expensive.
like a $3,500 day.
Yeah, I know. It's crazy. There's methylene blue IV is also really good for Lyme. I actually, if you come to LA, I have someone to put you in touch with for that. She does like all that stuff, and she's in Venice. But yeah, Lyme is a tough one for sure.
Yeah, thank gosh it's been a lot better than it was. But I will say from my experience and my journey with almost everything in my life coming from addiction and battling mental health stuff and Lyme disease, and movement is really sort of like the crux for me. Without movement, I am not the guy I am.
Same. I'm not the girl I am without movement.
Yeah.
I agree with that statement.
This was such a great session with you.
Yeah.
I'm totally like blown away by the cleansing thing, and I was so engaged. Like it was so hard for me to like take my attention off of you. So I really appreciate you coming on the show and sharing your dropping gems and sharing knowledge.
Yeah, of course.
No one has shared that style of cleansing on the show. So I guarantee that the value is just going to be truly appreciated.
Yeah, I can talk about this stuff for hours.
So Gil is in New York. So anybody in New York, like, is there a place that we can?
He's like no social media, no website, no. He's like super off the grid. He's one of those. So DM me and I'll give you his info. But there's a bunch of practitioners in New York. I'm actually in the process of thinking about building a colonic directory on my website because I just know of all the best practitioners everywhere. And I have so many people in my community that have, in Australia, they're like, I have the best practitioner. So I can build this sort of directory. I think that would be really helpful.
I wonder if there's any upstate. I'm
sure.
Oh
yeah. I got you. I'm like, I have clients all over. So I've ended up figuring out who the best practitioners are in different places. So I can I can definitely hook you up. But if you're close enough to New York and you come into New York, you have to see Gil. He's the best.
Where can we find you?
Yeah, so that plant-based gal on Instagram, and I post on LinkedIn, just Meghan Swidler. So I do a lot of long-form content on LinkedIn. I post mostly on Instagram quite often, and then I have my email newsletter as well. And yeah, through my Instagram, you'll find my link tree where you can book a consultation with me if you want to work together one-on-one, and then you can buy my first book From Within, and then my second book launching in January through Amazon or my website. And yeah, I think
What's the name of the second book?
TBD.
TBD.
Yeah,
All
TBD.
right. She knows the name of the book. Yeah. She's just not giving it to us.
TBD.
This was awesome. Really. I mean, we talked about habits, but we really covered some stuff that I think is far more valuable for the masses in terms of healing. Right?
Totally. It's my favorite thing to talk about. So thank you so much for having me.
Awesome.
Such a blast.
I hope everybody enjoyed that podcast. I know I certainly did. Wow, like I'm blown away. Truly, I'm blown away. I never thought that I'd say I'm running to go get a colonic, but to hear what the potential of healing a colonic can offer me and everybody else. I'm sure it's not just me who is now listening to this podcast or participating in this podcast and thinking, I'm going to go sign up for one of those things. So I'm super stoked that we just got that value today. If you appreciate this podcast, I would really appreciate if you would share it with a friend, with a family member. I say it every single time because I truly mean it. The gift you can give me and the Creatures of Habit podcast is sharing it. Hit the share button, ping it to a friend, ping it to an old coworker, ping it to your mom and dad, ping it to a foe. Bury the hatchet with an enemy with this podcast. It's been done before. I've had people DM me and say, "Hey, I sent that podcast to someone that I was really struggling with," and boom, all of a sudden we're having dinner and we're best buds again. So it would mean a lot to me. Also, if you gave us a 5-star rating and wrote a review, that also really helps increase the visibility of this podcast on all podcast platforms. Write us a review. Takes 90 seconds. Creatures of Habit podcast is awesome. That's all I need from you. That's all I'm asking for you. But really, more importantly, share the damn thing and connect with Miss Swidler at That Plant-Based Gal. I said the plant-based gal in the intro. It's actually That Plant-Based Gal. I appreciate you guys. I love you guys. And until the next one, y'all. Peace.